Welcome to stream. Today we have a lot to do, but before we finish off Rosemary's Floriograph, let's see what we found out last time. Stream to welcome. Did we find out a lot of things? Was there even a lot left? Yeah, decent amount. Joachim is overly protective of Bronya. Sometimes Bronya seems like the more mature one, though. Weird. 5 years ago, the church was destroyed, but somehow the rosemaries planted by the children have survived till this day. Mysterious. Research notes on human subject experiments. I didn't see it when I checked Mr. Joachim's room the first time. Intriguing. Raven claimed her purpose to be Mr. Choi's research. Raven claimed her purpose to be Mr. Choi's research files, which may lead to a cure for Sora. Sora obviously means a great deal to her. The pivot nodes of the security system were probably sabotaged by advanced firearms. What could those have been? I believe Grey Serpent doesn't share the same purpose with Jackal. He's after Mr. Choi's life from the very beginning. Well, well, well. The Valkyrie squad went missing in the hunt for the Phantom. Members seem to have lost their consciousness. And also attacked us for some reason. We found Raven's body. And the writing of Rache on the wall against her back. Grey Serpent's body was found right next to Raven. Did they kill each other? Unlikely. I had the pleasure to listen to Miss Adler's bath. No case analysis. I never felt more calm in my life. That's an important note to make. Dr. Tesla promised to tell me about Omega 2 and what Mr. Choice had been after. Grey Serpent, Jackal and Raven all have some kind of connection with Saint Fountain 5 years ago. I think ghosts are still quite mysterious. Let's see if we can put an end to this case. If do you think you're now ready to tell me, Dr. Einstein? What is this Omega 2 that Mr. Choice had been tracing these years? I leaned forward, with the blue-haired lady on the other side of the table. I leaned forward while the blue-haired lady on the other side of the table is impassively staring at me in the eye. Moments later, she let out a deep sigh, as if she just decided to give up something important. You won, Doctor. What I am about to tell you is the biggest secret of Lab 42 of Schicksal Imperial Institute. I trust you, but please don't put me in certain circumstances that require me to take drastic measures. I'm confident about my ability to keep secrets. You don't have to worry about that. To be honest, I'm surprised and flattered that you agreed to reveal this secret to me without much hesitation. So many people have died. I had no other choice. And I'd like to know what secrets are hidden behind this incident too. In that case, I'm all ears. Do you know that Welt used to be an assistant at Lab 42? Of course. Everyone knows that. But what do you know about his past before he joined Lab 42? Now that she mentioned it, I just realized that there is no intel about Weltjoy's past. It's because of the Institute's strict intel control measures. Welt used to be the Institute's top secret sample before he was transferred to Lab 42. Sample? Yes, sample for an experiment. Codename Omega 1. Omega 1. You don't need to know his real identity. I can't reveal it anyway, but I can tell you that Omega 2 Welt had been tracing were the only 2 copies of Omega 1 that the Institute had successfully made back when Welt served as the sample. The only 2 copies? Wait a sec, does that mean Joffrey? You're indeed incisive, Doctor. Yes, the boy whom you just met is one of the 2 copies. Who would have thought that this is what direct descendant really means? But unfortunately, those 2 boys did not get Welt's powers. Don't mind that. In short, as they failed to meet expectations, the Institute decided to dispose of Omega 2. Upon learning of this, Welt intervened with the influence of Lab 42 and managed to protect one of them at last. But the other one went missing ever since. I have a feeling that Joachim is the other one. I see. So Mr. Joyce acquired the intel that this missing Omega 2 was last seen in St. Fountain. Unfortunately, when he acquired the intel, the cataclysm already struck. So he led Lab 42 to St. Fountain not just to fight against the disaster, but also to investigate the whereabouts of Omega 2. Correct. Our informant in the Institute told us that the cause of the cataclysm had something to do with a certain experiment. But we couldn't find any recordings of the participant and details of the experiment. So that's why the Institute hired outsiders to conduct the experiment. What did you say? There was a timely knock on the door. It's open. I ended the conversation before Dr. Einstein could ask any more questions. Oops, am I interrupting you two? What's wrong, Irene? I just came to inform you that Sora just woke up. If a truth warped within lies and more lies, a heart consumed by the fire of vengeance, the ending of this story was written long, long ago. Oh, hi there, Seely. Funny meeting you here. When I saw Sora, Joffrey was sitting by her bed. To my surprise, it was his stepsister Bronya who was with him rather than Dr. Tesla. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Bronya. Where's Dr. Tesla? She is still studying the data about the Phantom, but Troy wants to check in on Sora. Bronya, there's something I'd like to talk about with the doctor. Can you take Joffrey somewhere else for a minute? Sure. Come on, Joey. Joffrey took Bronya's hand, and they went out together. Seeing this made me begin to doubt my assumption. Not a beetle now. From what I saw, they were as close as siblings with blood ties. Can't imagine she came to fight for the inheritance. Joachim told me Bronya cared deeply about a little girl in the orphanage, but she didn't make it in the disaster. Troy's true identity cannot be known, and he's been really weak that walking was impossible for him until recently. It's the first time Bronny has seen him in 5 years. Maybe she was reminded of some fond memories. Sora, how do you feel?
Sir, I'm much better now.
Sora's eyes were dull, her voice weak, and her face washed with tears. Apparently, she had learned of Raven's death. Would you mind if I asked you a few questions? She nodded softly, and I pulled a chair close to her bed to sit down. Could you tell me what happened last night, from the blackout until now?
All right, but I can't remember some of it, and I had this weird dream.
It's okay, just tell me what you still remember.
Last night, after the blackout, I felt someone grab me from behind. I screamed and tried to break free, but then something hit me in the head and I passed out.
And then?
I don't know how long had passed, but I was somewhere else when I woke up. A small alley, I think. Hands and feet were all tied up. I tried to scream for help, but my mouth was stuffed with a rag. I struggled to get up and look around, and then I saw him. He was in a black cloak, and his face was behind a mask. He just stood there in the rain, and he didn't say anything. I wanted to ask him who he was, why he took me, but my head was swimming and I couldn't see clearly, and...
Sora was frowning and wrestling with her memories. I waited quietly for her to continue.
And then he took out a knife and began to wipe it. 1 swipe, 2, 3. My mind wanted to escape, but my head was so dizzy, and all I could think of was sleep.
Dizzy? Griserpent drugged her?
No, I ran a brief test on her last night, and no residuals of anesthetic chemicals was found. After a while, this man finished wiping the knife and turned to me. I was scared to death, but I couldn't even scream loud. He walked up to me and lifted his knife.
I held my breath for what came next.
And just then, Sensei, she showed up.
Oh, so she made it just in time. Sora nodded and then looked away, keeping her tearful face from us.
Sensei, she saved me. She fought the masked man hard. I never saw her so angry.
Then what? What did you see after?
The masked man was losing, and Sensei knocked him down.
Sora's recall had matched my assumptions with her, but it was her next words that really mattered. Who killed your sensei and wrote the words in blood?
I didn't see. I fell asleep.
Asleep?
After Sensei beat down the bad guy, she walked to me. Once I knew we were safe, I couldn't hold back the sleepiness any longer. My eyelids became heavier and heavier.
When did you wake up?
Just right now, in this room. Bronny was taking care of me. She told me Sensei. I can't remember anything before.
Nothing at all?
No, but I had a weird dream when I was asleep.
Dream? What kind of dream?
In the dream I became someone else. A girl dressed in blue.
This is uncanny. Right when we found Chakal's body, I seem to have seen a girl in blue too.
The girl seemed very sad, and I started to feel sad too.
The girl, did she do anything to you?
No, in a dream, I was her. I saw a man holding my hand in the pouring rain, but I couldn't see his face clearly. He kept saying something, but I couldn't understand. It's just a bad dream, right, Doctor?
The moment I wanted to confront her, I was struck by a violent dizziness. This was not the first time. When I opened my eyes again, Sora, Irene and Dr. Einstein were all gone. All I could see was an azure shadow.
Find me.
Stop it. The girl in blue whispered so, and then I became her, Jackal, what did you do to Joffrey?
Easy now, Joachim. Joffrey's modification and debugging are almost done. Testing isn't in order now.
But he's just a kid.
Keep your researchers cool. He's just a test subject and means to achieve the end. Jackal and Joachim. Jackal looks pretty much the same, but Joachim seems a lot younger. They seem to be fighting over Joffrey. Joffrey? Why would this name come up here? Jackal is pretty small. Like compared to Sealy, who is literally a child. You leaving? Of course, I've done my part and got paid. No reason for me to linger. Stay and witness history. History? What does that have to do with me? Still the Raven I know. Wow.
Joey, are you alright?
They say I'm sick, and it's bad. Is it true, Mr. Joachim?
You're not sick. Trust me. Everything will be fine.
Sick? What happened to him? Shh. I think Joy is not getting treatment. We can't trust anyone from the church, not even Mr. Joachim. Don't worry, I'll keep you both safe. I was there once again, only this time it became much more realistic. I opened my palms and found two small, soft hands, which clearly belonged to the unnamed girl. I had no doubt what I just saw was something about the tests that took place 5 years ago. But why? Why would this strange memory come to me? Whose memory is this? If it's the girl who is sharing it with me, and what purpose is it for? With a million questions, I slowly walked to the azure shadow in the darkness. The rose is red, the violet is blue, Mary is sweet, and so are you. The rose is red, and Mary is blue. We were deceived, and so are you. She never turned again around to face me, only singing this familiar nursery rhyme again and again in a weeping voice. I picked up my pace, trying to catch up, but the harder I tried, the further she got away, and all of a sudden, I was cast out from this dream world. Doctor? Doctor? Dr. Einstein's voice became clear. I exhaled deeply, as if I just woke up from a nightmare. What just happened? You froze all of a sudden, and then you abruptly stood up
and opened the window, muttering to yourself. I still clearly remember everything I saw in the dream, and I'm almost sure it's a hint left to me by someone. Wait, a hint? I'm instantly lost in thought, despite my remaining shivers and the astonishment of the ladies. The rose is red, the violet is blue. Mary is sweet, and so are you. The rose is red and Mary is blue. We were deceived, and so are you. 2 days ago, we found Welt murdered in his room. The poem in the letter you received was copied from the crime scene. So you think it might be a message left by Mr. Joyce? Yes. The girl in blue in the dream was humming the same poem as the only message left at the death scene of Welt. Put aside the content of the poem, if this message was not originally written by Welt, then... I thought of Welt's notes that I found in his room. But there are some strange words scribed in the margin, which seem to be written down absent-mindedly. It's been going on for a month. I think it's time to rule out mental fatigue. The psychiatrist can't figure out why either. Why do I keep having the same dream? Why do I keep seeing that girl, and why is she always so mournful? The girl in blue. What Welt and I had experienced was that girl trying to send a certain message. You froze all of a sudden, and then you abruptly stood up and opened the window, muttering to yourself. I don't know, but we only heard Welt's voice outside the door, which was why we thought he was making a phone call. Welt must be in a dream when he was killed by Grey Serpent, who happened to sneak in at the time. But who stabbed Grey Serpent? In Welt's room there was another wounded man lying on the floor. A dagger, which might be the one that killed Welt, was sticking in the man's back. Leave aside the motive, there's something unusual about the wound on Grey Serpent's back. I've checked it. It's a fatal heart injury. There's no way he could lurk around for days and fight the former mercenary to death. The degree of compassion suggests that he's been dead for several days, which means Grey Serpent presumably died at the same time as Welt. But exactly who killed him? And how did a corpse murder Jakal and kidnap Sora? The biggest question is, what is the message that the girl in blue has been trying to send? I thought of what I just saw in the dream. It was a girl's memories of an experiment that happened 5 years ago. Joachim was arguing with Jekyll, the researcher in charge of the experiment. Raven had received her remuneration and was about to leave, and Bronya seemed to have found out something. She was keeping a watchful eye on Joachim. In that dream, I was that girl. Wait, I was her? I believe I'm on the verge of discovering something that is too unreal to be noticed. You froze all of a sudden, and then you abruptly stood up and opened the window, muttering to yourself. So when I was in the dream, my body was actually moving in reality? If I was that girl in the dream, then who was being me in reality? It's indeed a wild guess, but if it was true, then the message left by Welt, Grey Serpent's undead corpse, and the word written by blood, these puzzle pieces could form a pattern. No, cool yourself down, Conan Doyle. You're so close, but there's something more in that hint. If it was really that girl who was controlling my body, then the action of opening the window must mean something. With this thought, I took a deep breath and looked out the window. I see. Sora. What's wrong, Doctor? Before you came to St. Fountain, do you or anyone around you use perfume or grow flowers? I don't think so. Sensei had been taking good care of us, but we couldn't afford that. Thank you, that's very helpful. Dr. Einstein, could you please find something for me from the Institute's database? The Institute's database? Einstein nodded in surprise. As long as it's not classified, what do you want to know? Relax, I just need a roll of the victims in the cataclysm. Things are opening up, and I think the main suspect is still the Rosemary smelling Joachim. Although I'm not sure what role Celie is playing. She might be the murderer of and the one who was writing Rache everywhere. Cut! Murderer! What is it? Doctor's right. The incision on the body could only have been made by someone much shorter. We can't let her know this. It's too cruel for a child. We are in an empty agility room in the underground lab of the mansion, which is now a bit more crowded due to the 3 corpses lying side by side. Have you checked Mr. Troy's body in the treatment room next door? Yes, I have. It is indeed him. And I've checked all vital signs. He's dead for real. I'm curious. Did you already suspect Zora before you visited her today? Just a simple guess based on the position of the scarlet word on the wall. It was almost level with Raven's head, who died sitting on the ground, leaning against the wall. An adult of normal height would need to bend over or squat down to write the word, which would not be a comfortable posture for writing. But the word was obviously written smoothly, which means the writer of the word was likely to be the same height as a child. There happened to be a child on the scene. It's common sense, not a law, so it cannot be used as evidence in legal procedure. Gnomes, hobbits, crouching, no, it must be a child. You're witty as ever, Doctor. Though the process of your reasoning followed facts and common sense, the deduction you reached sounds improbable. I agree with Miss Adler. Your deduction this time is just implausible. Do you really think the perpetrator of the serial killing is a phantom? I'm not sure, Hua. Those who doubt always try to fit their own guesses into facts, but I deduce from facts and see if my deductions fit. This is what I have deduced from the facts known to us. As I talk, I bent over and sniffed Grey Serpent's body. So I was right after all. I think we can skip the reasoning and directly identify the murderer, but I need you to help me with something first. The air is filled with a delicate floral scent. Yes, this is the source of the scent. Only cabbage is possible in this world. Sadly no, the world has been consumed by Rosemary. I'm standing in the yard in front of the mansion, sniffing at the fragrance of rosemary. A man is carefully pruning next to me. I didn't know you were interested in flowers too, Doctor. Oh, I have learned some basic botany for professional reasons. Rosemary stems are lignified quickly. Too much pruning may harm the growth of new foliage, so it's best not to trim off more than half of a stem, or stems overall length at one at a time. And what you're doing is textbook pruning, Mr. Joachim. These plants must have been well tended in the past 5 years. I see you're very proud of your endless erudition. I heard the complacency in your tone. Joachim responded without even looking up. I raised an eyebrow. You seem to have a distaste for me, Mr. Joachim. I just hope you can do your job properly, Doctor. I don't want to see Bronya worried and scared. It's your duty to find the murderer and put an end to these horrors. Are you sure you can afford wasting time here? In my defense, I'm doing my job here right now. What? I abruptly approached Joachim, clutched his wrist, and whispered to him. You know who the murderer is from the very beginning, don't you? I don't know what you're talking about, but now I know Dr. Einstein shouldn't have trusted you with this case. His breathing was steady, and his pulse did not quicken, so I decided to drop another bomb. She's here, isn't she? Second bomb has obviously caused damage. Joachim's body quivered. His hand seems to have been frozen on the Rosemary stems. I can tell that he is trying hard to calm himself down. I don't understand a thing you said, Doctor, but you're making me uncomfortable. It's alright. All the puzzles will clear up soon. I let go of his wrist and took a look at my watch. It's about time. Come with me, please. Let's settle this matter once and for all. A truth warped in lies and more lies. A heart consumed by the fire of vengeance. The ending of the story was written long, long ago. When I stepped into the hall, everyone was present except Tua and the bedridden Sora. Doctor, I've gathered everyone here as you requested. Thank you, Dr. Einstein. I scanned around, passing through everyone's face before I cleared my throat. Hey, is it true you found the murderer, expert Snoop? Well, Dr. Tesla, how about you call me something else? Whatever, stop holding it up and just tell us who it is. Sure. The conclusion is, Grey Serpent killed Mr. Choice, but he was not responsible for the other 3 murders. And I presume it is someone among us then, Doctor? Yes, but we'll get to that part later. First, let's look at how Mr. Vel Choice was murdered. After all, this is the very reason I am here now. Dr. Einstein, may I? As Dr. Einstein nodded in consent, I went over what I was going to say in my head. It all started 5 years ago, if not any earlier. Mr. Choice had 2 lineal descendants. One is Joey, and the other one went missing years ago. Let's just call the other one Omega 2. 5 years ago, the catastrophic event in hit St. Fountain, and Lab 42 came to relief. This was just an appearance. What Mr. Choice truly wished to find out was the tests that caused the disaster, and Omega 2. Every sign leads to the fact that the high-ups of the church had a hand in the tests, but no record was left. Naturally, according to Raven, no one from the church was directly involved. The tests were led by Chacal. Grey Serpent was the material supplier. Raven handled the delivery of materials. Oh, what a team they make. Wait, what do you mean by materials? I think you know Chacal better than me. It wasn't the first time for her to meddle with human subjects. That's ridiculous. If she took in a lot of human subjects, how could she get away with unwanted attention? I believe you have noticed, Dr. Tesla. Back in St. Fountain, there was a place to take in orphans legitimately. Joachim, is it true? You were managing the church just for this atrocious business? Tesla's anger silenced the whole hall. Everyone held their breath and looked to the same person. Joachim pursed his lips and slowly closed his eyes. Dr. Tesla, it must be mistaken. Mr. Joachim, he... I know, it is indeed a mistake. I asked Raven about Mr. Joachim's role in the tests. She told me he was kept in the dark all along, right until the city was turned into ruins. But can we take her word for it? I believe yes. Raven confessed after she saw Mr. Choice's notes, which pointed out Mr. Choice was onto Grey Serpent. The tests on human subjects led to St. Fountain's fall. Once revealed, the truth will crucify everyone involved. So, Grey Serpent acted first and killed Welt. This explains Grey Serpent's motive. After Chakal's death and Sora's kidnap, Raven became sure Grey Serpent meant to silence everyone involved. She made the confession knowing she'd probably die in Grey Serpent's hands. I don't think she had any reason to lie. I was there too, and I believe she was telling the truth. No, wait. I'm not sure I'm following. The tests had caused the catastrophe, and Grey Serpent's motive. I got this part. But Joachim, you knew what Welt was after all these years. Why did you keep your mouth shut? What the hell is your plan? Dr. Tesla, I believe Mr. Joachim will give us a convincing explanation himself. But before that, let's return to the case itself. The killer of Chakal, Grey Serpent and Raven is still among us. What? But to follow what you just told us, Grey Serpent killed Welt, Chakal and kidnapped Sora. Raven then killed him to save Sora at the cost of her life. That explains everything, right? It's a fine story, but I believe you left out something important. Rache, the blood writing. Yes, what I'm about to say might sound far-fetched, so I'd like to begin with the two murders after Mr. Choice. In normal circumstances, Dr. Tesla's explanation makes perfect sense. Not for the blood writings. Rache means revenge in German. If it was Grey Serpent, he apparently didn't kill for revenge. On the other hand, if the writing was merely a distraction, then why didn't we see it near Mr. Choice's body? True. Dr. Tesla and Einstein said when they found Mr. Choice, Grey Serpent was also there, with a knife on his back. But when they got Mr. Choice to the emergency room and returned, Grey Serpent was gone. I examined Grey Serpent's body firsthand, trying to get an answer. The back wound went to the heart, a fatal blow. The wound had rotten so much that it's safe to say he died exactly around the time of Mr. Choice's death. What? Which means a corpse rose from the dead and killed Chakal and Raven before it was finally put to rest. That indeed defies everything logical. To begin with, it's hard to imagine all three directly involved in the tests should show up in St. Fountain together. That is hardly a coincidence. The killings were for revenge, and the three victims shared one thing in common, the Forsaken tests 5 years ago. So, of all the people here today, who has the best reason to see these three dead? The hall fell silent after my question. It was more than obvious. Doctor, that's very sound reasoning, but I must say the conclusion is based on the unfounded presumption of guilt. Yes, Bronny and I were victims of the horrendous events 5 years ago, but that doesn't mean we are guilty. And I'd like to remind you both of us were by your side when the two murders took place. You're right. Motive doesn't make you murderer. But there are too many things about you that make no sense. You knew exactly what happened 5 years ago, but you never said anything to Mr. Choice after joining Lab 42. You knew Chakal was responsible for the tragedy, but you still made her Bronnia's governess nonetheless. You knew more tragedies would follow if they got their hands on Mr. Choice's legacy, but you still invited them here. Unless, of course, none of them would walk out of the manor alive in your plan. Utter gibberish! Say whatever you want. Everyone here, including yourself, is our alibi. As long as this stands, everything you said is just wild fantasy. I knew it would eventually come to this. I sighed and put the comlink prepared by Dr. Tesla close to my lips. Action speaks louder than words, and that's how I'm going to prove my theory. Hua, how are the preparations going on your side? I'm ready, Doctor. I turned to face the group with a grim look. I'm going to burn every Rosemary in the yard. found surprise on Dr. Tesla and Bronya's face. But before they could speak, someone's breakdown came faster. Stop it! You can't do this! Care to explain me why Dr. Einstein has given her consent? You... Don't worry, Mr. Joachim. Dr. Tesla told me the church was burned down 5 years ago, but the Rosemary survived. It might take her some time, but fortunately we've prepared enough fuel. It's time for us to find out whether Rosemary truly stands for eternity or not. Just bloody stop it! The hysterical scream came from a man of maturity and refinement. He soon regained calm in everyone's shocked gaze. I confess, I killed Grey Serpent, Jackal and Raven. What's going on? I'm lost here. I'll leave details to the murderer himself. And before that, I'm afraid we have to temporarily restrain your freedom, Mr. Joachim. Before I finished my words, Hua had come out of hiding and slowly approached Joachim. It's a trap! A bitter smile floated up Joachim's face. To everyone's surprise, someone small stepped forward in front of him. Don't touch him. Bronya. Miss Sidechick, I know how you feel. Shut up, you know nothing about him or us. All of this is my plan, my revenge. And this is only the beginning. Oh, okay. I haven't fought Dark Bronya in a while. Get out! Just quit it, Miss Bronya. Your enemies are all gone. You can stop now, Bronya. No, I can't stop. You don't understand. I used to be very grateful to Grey Serpent, who brought me, a lowly child soldier, back from the battlefield. In the church, I met Celia and Joey, my beloved little sister and brother. For the first time in my life, I felt there was something worth cherishing in the world. But that woman named Jackal. She had been making modifications to all the orphans in the name of treatment. I knew something wasn't right, so I started my own investigation. I thought I had been doing it secretly, but they were still alerted. Raven and Grey Serpent somehow knew my plan to confront Sensei, so they pushed me down the stairs. When I woke up again, I had already been sent to one of the Institute's hospitals outside St. Fountain. I tried so many times to leave. I wanted to return to St. Fountain to take Celia and Joey away, but at that time I hadn't recovered from my leg injury, so all my escapes failed, and one day I read in the newspaper that a cataclysm occurred and St. Fountain had become a dead city. Bronya. Over the years, I've done many investigations, with all resources I could possibly access. I even used my bereavement to lure my enemies. Project Pseudo-Herrscher. That was the name of the experiment.
was to create powerful pseudo-hashers by modifying the copies of the first hasher. Well, choice!
How did you know about all this, Bronya?
They did those human experiments on the orphans purely out of their sick craving for powers. In the end, the project failed, St. Fountain was ruined, and my little brother became a nameless monster who killed our sister.
What? The Phantom of St. Fountain is Omega 2?
They all deserve to die. So I used Grey Serpent to kill Chakal, so that I didn't have to get her evil blood on my hands. Grey Serpent was the next. His first death was an accident, but I didn't want to let him off easy.
I was right.
Raven once mentioned she was also an orphan taken in by Grey Serpent. It was him who trained her to be a mercenary. So I controlled Grey Serpent to take Sora to have him killed again by his own pupil. As for Raven, she was ridiculously naive, as a merciless mercenary. After everything she had done, she started to adopt orphans all of a sudden. I couldn't stop laughing when I first heard about that. Trying to go straight and make amends, huh? No way! Bad people only deserve to die alone in the shadows.
So you controlled Sora to kill her.
You're indeed incisive, Doctor. The bitterness of being killed by someone she had cared and protected. She must taste it, just like my sister did.
I should have thought of this earlier. I thought the merciless avenger who had been hiding in the dark was Joachim, but I didn't know you had been holding such violent hatred. Anyway, this should be the end of your revenge. Your enemies are all gone.
The end? No, Doctor. Do you really think my revenge is complete after I killed the 3 pawns? Schicksal, the Institute. I know this behemoth is behind all this.
Huh.
When I first realized Schicksal was behind the project, I swore it one day erased its entire existence from the world. I opened my mouth, but failed to say anything. My usual calmness has been overwhelmed by Bronya's deep resentment. Her obsession with revenge is too intense to be eased by a sense of justice.
So I can't stop now?
Bronya gave a cruel smile. She reached out her hand and gently stroked Joachim's cheek. You'll protect me, right, Joffrey?
What? Yes, Bronya, my dear big sister.
Joachim has a calm look on his face, but I somehow see a trace of craziness on it. The next moment, deafening roar. A fierce roar came from nowhere.
What the?
A hideous monster emerged out of thin air behind Bronya and Joachim. In the next second, the monster took Bronya and Joachim and vanished. We all know the monster's name, but only Dr. Tesla came back to senses from the shock and said it out loud. It was the Phantom of St. Fountain!
Well, that was intense. Well, that's a secret.
Joffrey, Joachim is Omega 2. I figured it out instantly. The Joffrey that Bronya just mentioned is not a timid little boy who follows around Dr. Einstein, but Omega 2. If Joachim is Omega 2, what is that phantom? Doctor! Doctor! Who awoke me from my contemplation? What should we do now, Doctor? We have no devices or techniques to track down that phantom. Don't worry about it, Dr. Einstein. It's Bronya and Joachim that we should track, not the phantom. Before we assembled here, I borrowed a tracking device from Dr. Tesla and managed to stick it on Joachim's coat.
Ah, was it when you were in the yard? You knew back then that the phantom would come?
Of course not. I'm not a psychic. I was just taking precautions to prevent them from running away. The real problem is we don't have any weapons or measures that could hurt the phantom. Even if we could track down Bronya and Joachim, with the phantom around, we wouldn't be able to bring him back.
Oh, you don't need to worry about that.
I've been analyzing the data we collected from the phantom after our encounter with it.
The analysis went well, and I made the device based on the results. It can interfere with quantum states. I think it will effectively hurt the Phantom if we activate it in battle. Then let's set off. Let's go Phantom hunting. St. Fountain railway station, the only link the city has with the outside world. With a twist amidst the void, two people and a monster emerged.
Thank you, Mr. Joachim.
Sorry, this is all my fault.
No, Geoffrey. Conan Doyle is every bit as good as his name, and we were caught off guard by his cheap shot. I wonder how he came to know about the Rosemary secret.
Maybe not on his own, but with some help from Sealy.
Enough. How many times must I repeat? She's dead, and whatever is in the flowers is not her.
But
if she was, she'd come to me long ago. She'd have come to me long ago.
What should we do now?
Leave St. Fountain and lay low before the time is right for our next move. They've all paid with their blood. The only thing left for us to do is leave.
I believe we still have unsettled business here, Miss Sidechick. Who is there?
You, made it. Never thought Dr. Tesla's wild driving would actually do some good one day. Miss Sidechick, come with us, please. No way. You located the Phantom. Why? She suddenly thought of something and began to search herself. Failing to find what she had looked for, she tucked Joachim over and finally found a red dot on the inside of his sleeve.
Another cheap shot. Whatever works. Prepare to transfer.
However, this time the Phantom could not just vanish into thin air with the two like the last time. It let out a scream of puzzlement and confusion. After all this time, you still think we are unable to develop any countermeasures? Huh. Checkmate, Miss Sidechick. The counter force field is... There's no spoke on them. Won't hold back.
Dr. Tesla's invention is working. Time to show the monster our most elegant dance. Without the protection of the quantum state, the Phantom finally fell down under overwhelming attacks. Its physical composition is very unstable. It might still come back to life if we don't annihilate it now. But I know what you are worried about, Fuhua. But this Phantom is not Omega-2. It's nothing but a Honkai beast.
If Miss Fuhua doesn't have the heart to end its life, leave the dirty work to me then.
Irene brushed past us and raised her deadly scythe. The Phantom under the scythe is like a wounded beast in a trap awaiting its doom.
Sensei!
A scream was heard along with the sound of metal clashing together. Bronya and her shield was knocked over by Irene's giant scythe. Sensei? I suddenly thought of a detail of the intel Hua told me. It was when they first met the Phantom. When Joachim was shielding Bronya with himself, the Phantom suddenly stopped its attack and disappeared. Turns out when Bronya cried out Sensei, she was actually calling this hideous monster rather than Joachim. Stop, Irene! I shouted at the last second. To my surprise, Irene unhurriedly held her scythe, as if it was what she had expected. Hey, expert Snoop! Didn't you hear what I just said? Doctor, what is going on? This is unbelievable. I thought the serial murder and Grey Serpent's undead corpse were already uncanny, but there's actually something even more unexpected. I believe this phantom is the real Joachim, the sensei and father of the orphans before the cataclysm. Goodbye. You saw it through after all. Bonnier slowly hobbled over to us, leaning on Joachim. You're right, this phantom is Joachim, who was our sensei 5 years ago. What? I have a question. Omega 2, no, Mr. Joffrey. I remember Miss Bronnier once mentioned that the failed experiment turned you into a mindless monster 5 years ago. Yes, though I don't remember anything about that experiment. I saw the horrible memories stored in this body. Seely, my big sister, was killed by me. Then how did you get into this body? Come to think of it, it seems more like a soul swap, perhaps. I don't know. I really don't. This body gave me all of Sensei's memories, experiences, and knowledge, except for the memory of the soul swap. All I could remember about it was a promise that Sensei made to Seely before she died. A promise? He promised to let me die as a human, even if it means he may have to exchange his soul with the devil. I shouldn't say this as a scientist, but this paranormal phenomenon seems to only make sense when the devils are involved. Doctor, we've answered your questions, so please answer our question in exchange. As long as I have the answer. I'd like to know, how did you find out about the secret of Rosemary? Find out? You overestimate me, Miss Bronnier. If your sister hadn't left me those hints, I'd never have thought floral scents could be used as a medium of possession. Hold on, what are you two talking about? In the mansion, I played some tricks to make the murderer confess, which sparked off a series of unexpected events. But I haven't explained to you about the kind of magic they have used to control Grey Serpent's dead body and make the murders happen. First devils, now magic. Am I still in the real world? They might be the same thing, I think. What does that mean? I once said that there was something paradoxical about the serial murder, the word Rache written with blood. It's true that in many cases the murderers intentionally left messages at the crime scene to display their will. But in this case, the word actually made the Grey Serpent murdered all the insiders of the experiment to cover for himself a story less credible. So it occurred to me, maybe the one who wrote the word was trying to reveal the real motive of the murderer. And what happened next bore out my assumption. When I was visiting Sora, I fell into a dream, in which I became a strange little girl. Through her eyes, I saw what happened in a certain lab before the cataclysm happened. And in the end of the dream, I heard the girl humming a certain poem. The rose is red, the violet is blue. Mary is sweet, and so are you. The rose is red, and Mary is blue. We were deceived, and so are you. Yes, it's the same poem left on Mr. Choi's desk at his death scene. I was finally sure that the girl in my dream was real, and she had been trying to send messages to us. And obviously Mr. Choice had also met this girl before. He mentioned about her in his notes that I found in his room. So it occurred to me, maybe this girl was trying to tell us more. In fact, when I was in the dream, Irene, Einstein and Sora all saw that I walked to the window, opened it, and started to mutter to myself. If that behavior was also a hint, then the girl must have some sort of ability to control people's bodies in a dream. Crazy as it may sound, it could explain all the logical aspects of this case.
Such as? Dr. Einstein, I remember you told me that you heard Mr. Joyce talking to someone on the phone before he was killed. Yes, I assumed that because I only heard his voice, and the conversation proceeded. What if Mr. Joyce was in a state similar to the one I was in? He could be talking to the air, just like I did. It is possible. I remember Miss Bronner mentioned in her confession that Mr. Joyce's death was an accident. So I think it was because of Mr. Joyce's unconsciousness that Grey Serpent easily murdered him, and then the girl controlled Mr. Joyce's body to give Grey Serpent an unexpected stab in the back, and controlled Grey Serpent's body to leave the scene. Your imagination is impressive. You are a natural novelist. An ordinary detective would have been trapped in common sense, but you managed to break free, and even devised the method of trickery to verify your wild hypothesis. You can't be trapped by common sense in Honkai. Well, at that time I believed making you think I was going to burn down the flowers was the easiest way to reveal the uncanny truth. But what you just explained doesn't have anything to do with Rosemary. Oh, about that! It was actually also a hint from the girl. I told you she controlled me to open the window. So after I woke up from the dream, I looked out of the window and saw nothing but a yard full of rosemary. Which reminded me of the first time I fell into a dream about the girl. It was when I was examining Jackal's corpse. I smelled a pleasant floral scent coming from Joachim, who was standing next to me. Then I suddenly realized that I knew that scent. I had smelled it several times. In Mr. Joyce's room, on Grey Serpent's rotting body, and on Sora, whom I visited after Raven's death. I see. That's how you knew Raven was killed by the possessed Sora. Not just that. The angle of the incision in Raven's throat also suggested the murderer was much shorter than her. And the height of the scarlet word on the wall also agreed with that conjecture. On top of all this, I found a familiar face in the role of the Cataclysm victims that I borrowed from Dr. Einstein. The girl who made me see what happened in the lab 5 years ago must be someone from the orphanage, and I found her. Her name was Celie Valerai, who was Bronya Sychek's little sister, and best friend in the orphanage. Thank you for elaborating, Doctor, but I don't think the girl hiding in Rosemary's scent is my sister Celie. If it really was her, then why did she reveal my plan to you while assisting me with my revenge? I see you still haven't understood. It's certainly because she loves her sister and little brother deeply. So she's been helping them, while still hoping someone would find out and rescue them from the gory path of revenge. Maybe you're right, Doctor. Grania opened her hand. There's a glowing bloom in her palm. It's Rosemary, the flower of memories. Why? Why would you rather appear in other people's dreams than coming to me? If Doctor is right, if that's how you really feel... Grania hesitated no more. She raised the rosemary and gently kissed the delicate petals. And show me. A strong fragrance diffused like a night breeze as the rosemary in Bronia's hand dissolved into red and black hues. For a moment I seemed to see a red figure soundlessly emerging behind Bronia. She embraced Bronia's slender neck. Then their figures overlapped. If you have to stand in my way of revenge, then take my burning rage now. It's become even more violent. Watch out, she's consumed by hatred now. Poor child, let me guide you to the land of the afterlife, or something. Tentacles!
It's all over. She was exhausted. She could feel the raging fury that used to control her faded gradually, and vanished at last. The rosemary in her hand, which was supposed to bloom eternally, had withered and become hideous. Me remains. So this is how you refuted me, by helping me vent my anger until we are both hurt and exhausted. So this is what awaits at the end of the path of revenge, isn't it? The rain kept pouring down. Ronja weakly looked up. Her eyes widened in surprise. She saw a clear, vivid figure. It's her friend, her sister, and her family. For so many years she had been treating this figure as just a figment, a phantom, and a handy tool for revenge. Because the phantom never smiled or spoke to her, or kept her warm when the cold came, like Seely used to. But she just realized Seely has always been with her, and she was just blinded by the intense hatred in her mind. She knows it's Seely, because only Seely would shed sorrowful tears for her. Seely? Seely, Ronja! Joey. I've known this all along, because I've been looking after the Rosemary and our memories. Though Seely cannot talk to us, she's always been with us. I'm sorry, Ronja, but rather than taking revenge, I want the three of us together. Joey. Seely. Tears ran down her cheeks. For the first time since she indulged herself in the overwhelming desire for vengeance, she felt her real emotions. Then she saw an unreal image. In bright white light, a gentle, cultivated man and a girl in blue are leaving hand in hand. The man looked back and waved at her with a comforting smile, as if he just perceived her gaze. Take care, dear Ronja, they said their farewell, and faded away in the light. When she came back to her senses, she found the sea of flower remains and her hand gone with the wind. And that monstrous phantom was also gone. Ah! She finally started to wail miserably. Case closed, Doctor. Yeah, the only thing left to do is deal with the two culprits. Which is not a detective's job. Dr. Einstein, I think we should let Mr. Choice decide. Huh. I didn't expect another twist in the end. How fascinating. You're making no sense, Doctor. Agreed, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's okay, Ein, Tesla. You need to cover for me. No need to cover for me now that I'm already exposed. A small figure emerged from the corner of the street. Obviously, he saw everything that just happened. Joey? It's Geoffrey Joyce. He now looked as too solemn as a child, but I can see he's trying to give a friendly smile. I thought I had been hiding well. Could you tell me when I gave myself away, Doctor? You have indeed hidden well, Mr. Joyce, but there have been a few subtle hints. The first one was the paradoxical aura you exuded when you gave testimony at Jaxel's death scene. You weren't like a timid boy at all. I knew it. I'm a fan of your detective stories, and have always wanted to say lines like that, so I got carried away. But what really makes me realize that you are still alive is something more solid than an intuitive feeling.
What is it?
The change in Dr. Einstein's attitude. The investigation once came to a dead end before Raven told us about the experiment, which provided that turnaround. The reason why she told us was because we found the notes about the experiment at Grey Serpent in your room.
What's wrong with that?
I checked your bookshelf on my first search in your room. The notes weren't there at that time. And under the circumstances, the way Dr. Einstein infuriated Raven just felt too intentional. Well, I knew I wasn't good at acting. I remember clearly that when we first arrived, Dr. Einstein was loath to talk about the Phantom and the Cataclysm. Yet she provided me those key clues that could push the investigation forward via such a poor act. Such a dramatic change in her attitude could only be a result of someone's instruction. And I can't think of anyone else in this manner that could order Dr. Einstein except for a deceased Mr. Choice.
I see. That's really impressive.
And what's with your situation? I wouldn't believe it if you told me you turned into a little boy for fun.
Haha, that's certainly not the case, but I really don't know why it happened.
You've already deduced the details of the murder.
In fact, I don't remember anything about it. When I woke up again, I was already in this body.
I have to ask, now that you are occupying this body, where is the original soul of this Omega-2?
It doesn't exist.
I'm so sorry, Doctor. Had Ein lied to you?
There were indeed 2 of my copies, but there's only one Omega-2, which is the trophy in Joachim's body.
Then this body
never woke up since it was made. Though its vital signs have been normal, the lack of soul still makes it defective.
Anyway, I'm glad to see you're still alive, Mr. Choice.
I'm glad to meet you too, Dr. Conan Doyle.
Welt then cast a glance at Bronny and Joffrey, and showed a trace of sadness. Mr. Choice, you are my client. Now that the perpetrators have been identified, the rest is up to you to decide.
I'd like to hear your suggestion, Doctor.
I pondered for a moment, and said in a measured tone. There were a few cases that made me realize sometimes catching the culprits brings more pain than the very crimes. And now I've learned to be more prudent. If I have to choose, I'd rather deceive the rules than my conscience. Consciousness? No. I think so too. Sometimes one tragedy might lead to another, and this chain reaction may go on forever, which will eventually push everything and everyone into a hopeless abyss. The 2 of them already bear too much pain. I'm glad to see we're in agreement on this matter. My dear Hua, it's time for our return trip. The train station hasn't been blown up. Hua nodded. Her reticence on occasions like this has been quite comforting to me. Welt also expressed his gratitude to Irene. I failed to figure out the relationship between them, after all. People do indeed turn into kids when they are killed. It was indeed a tragic scene. The merciless rain poured down, but the remaining fires were still relentlessly burning all over the ruins. The building that was once called home had been wrecked and was almost unrecognizable. The bright full moon in the sky was witnessing everything, coolly and soundlessly. A man was standing in hell, gazing into the darkness. Life had escaped from the eyes of the petite little girl, who was lying in the ruins like a discarded doll. The raging rain covered up all the noise, but the man believed she was there. "Can it really save them?" the man asked abruptly in a hoarse but calm voice. In a moment, a melodious female voice answered him. Who knows? It brings different results to different wishes. But you have no other choice, do you? She soundlessly appeared behind him like a light dream. Her tone was still bewitching, but with less mockery. You are right, I have no other choice. He walked to the little girl and gently picked her up, like carrying a plume of smoke. She already vanished when he stood up, but he walked to the scorched flower bed anyways, carrying the little girl. The fire had burned down every inch of the church, let alone that clump of delicate rosemary. He looked at the flower bed that was once full of green and mauve hues. Ashes and charred twigs were the only thing left, with embers greedily gnawing at them. But he didn't hesitate. He gently put the little girl on the remains of the flowers. I will keep my promise, Seely. Like a dreamy flashback, the clump of charred rosemary was instantly restored to its original beauty and delicacy. The green stems propped up the girl's body, and the mauve petals softly stroked her skin. The embers ebbed away upon contact with the petals, like a canoe being pushed back by the tide. It's their memory, an eternal sanctuary. Nothing could hurt her any more. The man thought so, with relief. A terrible growl echoed through the rain. A giant, twisted figure can be made out in the distance. He began to run towards it resolutely. Wait for me, Joffrey. Die, a human. Live on, a human. The boy's memory was hazy and fragmented. He only remembered he had a dream after he woke up. A horrible dream in which he was no longer a boy, but a big, ugly monster. His mouth had the taste of blood. His claws ripped open what felt like human flesh. His eyes could only see red. He felt relieved waking up from the nightmare. For one instant, he thought he'd been trapped in the monster forever. But still, his body felt different. He lifted his hands and checked. Even though covered in mud and dirt, these big hands obviously belonged to a grown man. What happened to me? He now found his voice wrong too. It was deep. It was a deep and familiar voice that he seemed to have heard every day. He panicked and got up to his feet amidst the fire and wreckages. What on earth happened to him? He stood still in this living hell and laboredly searched his memory. At last he thought of something important and began to sprint towards what was left of the church. All this was quietly taken in by the eyes of the sorceress. She was gently nipping a delicate flower with a blue glow. The glow kept flickering in the rain, as if singing the Floriograph of the Rosemary. Title drop. Let's end this. Well, Troyes announced that the members of Lab 42 had seeded from Schicksal and allied with the North American branch of Schicksal to form a new anti-Honkai organization named Anti-Entropy. I didn't expect Well Troyes would have made such a huge move after that incident. But you seem to be indifferent to the shocking news. I'm used to going where the wind blows. I prefer dealing with little cases rather than huge organizations and systems. Anyway, a rival organization to Schicksal sounds like the right place for Bronny and Joffrey. The rose on her head does look like an eye, you're correct. I heard you just returned from a big journey. The tour tell you this? Yes, I went to the East region to take care of Raven's instruments. To take care of Raven's instrument to me. No, to take care of Raven's entrustment to me. Okay, hard word. Those orphans she adopted have been taken in by Anti-Entropy. I believe Mr. Troyes will take good care of them. Anyway, though this case was solved, I still don't have a clue how the possession via floral scent and soul exchange happened.
I didn't know you'd be so obsessed with the paranormal.
Before the phantom vanished, I thought I saw a mirage for a moment. I saw Joachim and Seely leaving in a white light. He looked back and waved his hand, as if he was thanking someone.
Sounds more like he was just waving goodbye.
No, my intuition told me he was expressing gratitude to someone. And for a moment you seemed to be giving them a wave, though you weren't facing them.
Oh, I did? Are you sure?
Of course. The serial murder happened in St. Fountain. Might be the most uncanny case that I could ever experience in my life. And the uncanny part is...
the Grey Serpent we saw wasn't really Grey Serpent. The Phantom wasn't a Phantom. Joachim wasn't Joachim. And even Joffrey wasn't really himself. Then is it possible that Irene Adler wasn't really Irene Adler? And Conan Doyle wasn't the real Conan Doyle? Who are you? Who I am is not important. The real question is, who are you?
Me? I'm... You have the answers, but something seems to be clenching your throat and preventing you from voicing them out. The people and incidents in your mind are real memories, but it felt as if you were browsing through an old album. Inside an isolated chamber, in the next moment, you fell into an endless darkness.
Is he awake? No, he probably needs more time. I've already helped him find himself. It's only a matter of time for him to wake up, but... Too many times of consciousness mapping have added too many foreign perceptions and cognitions into his mind. If this continues, sooner or later... I know that, and he knows that too, but that's his choice. As for you, I find it suspicious that you actually managed to infiltrate Hyperion and seem to know everything about this guy. You're not like me or anyone else on this ship. I can feel it. To be more precise, you're more like him. Who are you? If I recall correctly, Miss Kongming, we made a deal a long time ago. I take him back, and you let me have my own little secret. Huh! Furtive woman. I've told you that my name is Rita Rosewise, though I may not be the same Rita you used to know. I wouldn't refuse if you ever felt like snuggling up to me. You... Ha! I'll turn a blind eye to you for now, as a thank you for saving him. Sounds fair. But if I ever find out about whatever you might be scheming to do on Hyperion, you can punish me however you like. Huh, I will! This bedroom is yours now. If he wakes up, tell him to meet me on the bridge when he feels better. I have a lot to say to him. Ah, I feel sorry for him. Huh. Did you hear that? She seemed to be bent out of shape.
Please let me escape from reality for a while. You don't seem to be surprised seeing me here. I know you and me are the same. I can feel that thing inside you. Consciousness mapping is a complicated ability. You may want to stop using it. It synchronizes your consciousness and memories with the objects, which generates an unbearable massive info load. And the increasing amount of cognition residues left in your mind will impair your self-awareness. Is that so? I did think I was that novelist this time. If you didn't help me remember myself, I wouldn't be here. So Rita, does that mean you... Oh, nothing. I just had a nostalgic dream when my mind was still hazy. I feel better now. I'm gonna go meet her on that bridge. Lamchan. Huh, what a reunion. So he didn't recognize me after all. So he did not recognize me at all. Classic Captain. He's always... That's a word. Perspicacious and perceptive about anything except for his own business. But if I put on this dress for him, do you think he would recognize me, Loki? Huh? I do not know what just happened, but I'm sure we will find out in the future. Captain's story is not over, it seems. Although I did have quite the suspicion from the very beginning that he was Conan Doyle. There would not be an event that wouldn't have Captain as the main character, after all. My oh my. Two clones cultured by Schicksal back when Wild Choice was still test subject Omega-1. Appears that they failed to inherit Mr. Choice's powers. Grey Serpent's back one told me that he had been dead for days, but weirdly his body smelt of something familiar. When kidnapped, Sora had a dream about a girl in blue. I dreamed about the same girl, Seely, who came from the orphanage. The fragrance came from Rosemary's. Inhaling it makes you dream and lose part of your memory. It was Sora who killed Raven. Joachim is one of the murderers. He committed murders using something unconventional. Bronja is also one of the murderers. She means to take revenge on Chacal, Grey Serpent, Raven, and even the Schicksal Church behind them. His true identity is Joffrey, the orphanage boy, and the missing clone, Omega-2. The Phantom's true identity is Joachim, who swapped his body with the monster, Joffrey, 5 years ago. Seely's soul rests with the Rosemary's, that's why they never wither. Joffrey Choice is the name shared by two clones codenamed Omega-2. Well, Choice didn't die. He's now in the body of the missing Omega-2.
今週の仕事を完了したのですね。さすがです。
さすがです。Well, that was half of today's main event. Feels kinda silly to start something new now, but from beds of everlasting snow into earth does water flow. More rhymes, more poetry. Last time, in chapter 18, what did happen? We were betrayed, or was that even earlier? We were betrayed by Owl, who is teaming up with the Hersher of Ice. But then they managed to escape. Or did they? Smothering stiffness, pain, exhaustion, and powerlessness. He felt like a withered root buried in the ruined earth. There was no light in this suffocating agony. He did not accept this. He tried to move his hands. His fingers felt only cold, sharp pain. Bits of dirt and mud fell onto his face. Having exhausted himself, the man accepted his hopeless reality and closed his eyes. It was at that very moment when he heard a soft, digging sound. Crack, crack. The sound grew louder. He opened his eyes. Light shone through a tiny crack right above him. Someone removed the heavy slab with a shout. This is the past. He saw the person who saved him. Her worried look was overtaken by joyous relief. She removed more rocks and debris. The crack widened into a gap, through which light poured onto his face. His voice was weak, yet he found the strength to stretch out a trembling hand. He could feel the warmth in her palm. He saw her smile. Her beautiful face was highlighted by the sun and unfurled before him like a portrait painting. The light grew stronger. His vision blurred as her smile began to warp and twist. The world fell silent. There was nothing left except for a call echoing in the far distance. And now, back to the present. Memories faded and gave way to the stark reality. The first thing he saw was the Hersher beside him. She was silent. Anna's face was visible beneath the veil. She was as beautiful as he remembered. But the Hersher was as innocent and confused as a newborn child. Her gaze was bereft of human reason.
Anna. 安心しろ。必ず君を助ける。俺を信じてくれ。ああ、絶対に 君をここから連れ出す。
Well, let's chase those two down, I guess. Act 1. Trails of Ice. The storm is followed by a wake of freezing death. Coral. Outskirts. The Immortal Blades Valkyrie squad just endured a powerful blizzard.
これは
副隊長、先ほどの寒波衝撃はサンゴ島の中心エリアで発生したものです。爆発した瞬間の崩壊エネルギーは凄まじいものであったことが確認できております。今サンゴ島全域が凍ってます。きっとリッチャの力です。隊長は大丈夫でしょうか。副隊長、私たちはどうすればいいんですか。隊長の支援に向かった方がいいのでしょうか。
Rita looked towards the city center and saw Honkai beasts hidden in the frozen mists.
私たちには私たちの使命があります。デュラレは防衛線を守ることです。勝手に任務から離れたりはできません。今私たちにできることはデュランダル様を信じ、彼女の後ろ盾になること。不朽なる刃、崩壊迎撃準備。
かしこまりました。
Squids on a bridge. Big stupid jellyfish. Also crabs.
総員警戒してください。災害現場に到着した。
Well, this is silly. Good to know that I can move them around for no reason. Nobody wants to talk to me. They totally helped. The blizzard subsided as soon as the hunger beasts were vanquished. Rita looked towards the skyscrapers in the distance. Her anxiety was only too obvious.
デュランダル様。
おかしいです。崩壊獣は全て消滅しましたが、周りの崩壊エネルギーはまだ上昇してます。
Alvita surveyed the battlefield and quickly found her answer. Two approaching figures emerged from the retreating mist. They walked very slowly, as though they were afraid of breaking the fragile ice beneath their feet, and shadowed like this broken battlefield.
どうやらここが天命の防衛戦か。
Well, well, well. She has taken off the veil. Daily stages of higher ranks drop more tokens. Try to challenge them after boosting your R&D levels. We will do that later. Trails of ice. Fearless she stood against the Hersh's frigid blast.
どうして律者がここに。まさか隊長が。副隊長、どうしましょう。
The Hersh's presence threw a few Valkyries into panic, but most quickly rallied around Rita. They knew what must be done despite the odds.
全員対立者作戦準備。
どけ。デュランダルとライデン・メイは失敗した。お前も俺たちを止められない。
申し訳ございませんが、律者をこの島から出すわけにはいきません。
黙れ。アナは律者じゃない。彼女は人間だ。アナ、そうだろ。
The Hersher uttered an unintelligible and bestial growl. Rita gripped her weapon. The immortal blade Valkyries assumed their fighting formation.
これ以上言っても無駄のようですね。
いいだろう。では、望むままに。
Well, those Valkyries will not help anyone.
あとはお前一人だけだ。無駄なあがきはやめ。
私一人でも止めてみせます。やっはっ。
Those are some quick attacks. Rita was examined to hypothermia. Need to stay close to oil barrels to prevent that. Her Argent Knight battlesuit fared purely against the Hersher of Ice, but oath and duty forbade Rita to retreat. She knew she was the final line of defense.
お前の相手をする時間などない。今すぐどくんだ。
絶対に通しません。
Rita's Godsbane battlesuit worked at maximum capacity just to keep her on her feet. The response she received was a powerful frigid current. Rest in peace, Rita. Once the storm has passed, May and Durandal trace the enemy's steps. Ah, yes. Raid May, Shadow Dash. New version. I've not had the chance to play as her yet, so that's gonna be interesting. Meanwhile, downtown Koro. Horns were probably frozen off. A red glow glimmered amidst the ruins of ice and rubble. May created an EM field to insulate her and Durandal against the extreme cold. She reverted to her usual form as she carefully manipulated her powers to maintain the field.
デュランダルさん、大丈夫ですか？
平気です。そちらはその姿大丈夫なんですか？
氷の律者はまだ自身の力に慣れていないようです。あれ式で私が傷つくことはありません。ですが、フクロウと律者は先ほどの攻撃に乗じてここを離れています。すぐに追いかけなければいけません。律者の力がここ一帯を絶対零度の七にしています。私が先頭へ行きますのでついてきてください。
ええ、わかりました。
Well, let's see what she can do. Split it into 4, that's what she can do. Okay, I like that playstyle. That's pretty nice. I hated the original version of Shadow Dash, so this replacement upgrade will be very nice for me, personally. Who? Oh, hi! You are still here as well. Raven landed quietly before them. Her face was ghastly pale, perhaps due to the toxin or the cold.
すまない。さっきの寒波のせいで道が塞がっていた。内部の気温も低く、支援することができなかった。
大丈夫。そっちは平気？
問題ない。フクロウと律者は何があった？
May summarized what had happened in their prior engagement.
なるほど。まさかあいつにそんな過去があったとはな。それでどうするつもりだ？
こうなった以上、彼らを早々に見つけ出すしかないわ。
だが、黄泉の杖がない今、見つけても何もできないだろう。律者を捕まえるにはそれが必要なんだからな。何にせよ、ジャッカルが悪い。あいつがもっと用意してくれていれば、こんな面倒にもならなかった。サンゴ島の通信は崩壊のせいで途絶えている。あいつに連絡するには、一時撤退するしかないだろう。
撤退？いいえ、撤退はできない。撤退にかかる時間は決して少なくないわ。その間にも 崩壊は拡散し続け、命を奪い続ける。それに
May stopped there. She and Raven gazed at each other in silence. Raven knew what May was about to say. A retreat would give the Ice Searcher time to escalate the war. A third party may even get involved, and they might deploy the Hyperion if the situation grows desperate. And when that happens, that special friend of hers would also enter the fray.
撤退は認めない。
じゃあどうすればいい？
May thought for a while and quickly proposed her solution.
渡りガラス、黄泉の杖の残骸を見つけてきて。
残骸？
まだ方法があるかもしれない。
わかった。お前を信じるとしよう。
それまで私は律者を止める。どんな方法を使ってでも。
Raven nodded. She then turned around and disappeared into the silvery mist.
話は終わりましたか？
ええ、行きましょう。
今、律者の行方は分かりませんが、彼らがサンゴ島を出ようとするなら、バルキリーたちの防衛線を突破しなければなりません。
Wasn't much of a defense.
律者がここを出てしまう前に、私は彼女たちと合流します。
There aren't many Valkyries to join anymore.
ライデン・メイさん、今回は迷わないでください。
もちろんです。
Don't stab the ground, it has done nothing to you. Valkyrie could scarcely hide her pain after witnessing her comrade's defeat. The frost continued to creep beyond the heart of coral and created an icy path in its wake.
律者の反応はまだこの島の中。そう遠くへは行っていないはず。この先はバルキリーたちが敷いた防衛線ですね。
By the way, I'm utterly confused that we seem to be having complete Japanese voice acting this time. And just one chapter ago we didn't even have English subtitles.
私の番ですね。こちらです。
Just FYI, those English subtitles didn't still not get added to the previous chapter. Unconscious Valkyries were found at the end of the path. Though alive, they were no longer capable of fighting. A pale figure encased in a crust of ice stood out amongst the defeated Valkyries.
Rita!
Yeah, that one. Durandal rushed forward and held her adjutant in her arms. Rita was still breathing, if only weakly.
ライデン・メイさん、律者の追跡をお願いします。
ええ。
May knew what had to be done and turned around without a word. Behind her, the Holy Lance gave off a glow that engulfed the entire battlefield. Not like they were fighting before. True. Harsh, but true. What was frozen must be fought. Into the earth does the water flow. Inescapable freight brings all of the ordained destiny. Like, this is original Shadow Dash, and I hate her playstyle, so let's use her while we still can. One last ride for original Shadow Dash.
この戦闘は勝たなければいけません。
Say no more. Kagabuchi. That's a lot of mace. Trails of ice. The dying one continued his path, ever hounded by the pending thunder. Say something. The dark tunnels seemed to go on forever. Owl felt heavier and slower with every step he took. Mechanical joints creaked as parts came loose and fell to the ground, but Owl fixed his gaze upon the distant exit. He knew he only needed to reach that place to end all this. His vision began to blur as lights trailed lines upon his clouded sight. His thoughts swam as the light illuminated past memories. The girl repeated those lines as she struggled to support his weight with her body. But she could hardly hide her distressed looks. Those encouraging words were not only meant for him. Tianwu knew that the Valkyrie was also fighting her own fears.
手が震えてる。
いや、これは。
確かにこの災害は怖い。人間が化け物になって攻撃し合ってるし、変わった獣が街中にいる。
崩壊のせいです。
崩壊？
崩壊。
ええ。でも心配しないで。私は天命のバリキリー。崩壊からあなたを守るのが私の仕事です。あ、ごめんなさい。普通の人からしたら理解できませんよね。
なるほど。ゾンビゲームみたいなものかと思った。
I mean, it's similar enough.
ゾンビゲーム？
Zombie game.
ああ、腐った死体が歩き回る。通常の手段では奴らを殺せないんだ。倒す方法はその脳を破壊するか。 炎で焼くかしかない。それにもっと恐ろしいのは、奴らに噛まれたら姿形が変わり始めることだ。理性を失い、奴らと同じ歩く死体になってしまう。そして最も恐ろしいのは、
やめて。
ん？
やめてください。どうしてそんな話を。ゾンビだけで十分気持ち悪いのに。
なんだ、そういうのを怖がるんだな。
違います。怖いなんて言ってません。気持ち悪いだけです。
気持ち悪い。
バルキリーも普通の女の子とそう変わらないのか。俺は陳天部。君は？
アナシャニアテ。
アナ、ありがとう。
どういたしまして。
May tracked the Hersh's trail and arrived at the tunnel entrance, her mind deep in thought. She could not forget the sight of the defeated Immortal Blades, Valkyries, and Rita. A series of dull thumping noises interrupted her. She raised her head and saw hunger beasts hatching in the tunnel. She knew she was on the right track. The Hersher would be at the other side of this tunnel. Her blade was drawn. She knew there was only one thing to be done. Upgrades! That dragon did not need to attack much. Sparks flew as May slashed her way through an enraged Oni. While lightning and thunder exploded all around her, May's mind was as tranquil as a still lake.
絶対にさせない。私が彼女たちを守る。これが私のすべてだから。
A light erupted within the tunnel and sped to the other end before converging into a single point.
かかってきなさい。氷の律者。
The Manila Honkai Eruption. Event ID SEA 074. Location Manila, the Philippines. Eruption time the 22nd of May 2015 at 4 o'clock. The 2015 Honkai eruption in Manila, capital city of the Philippines, was the largest and most disastrous Honkai event in Southeast Asia. Although the Manila eruption did not give birth to any Hersher, it claimed over 2 million lives. About 3 million people suffered various degrees of Honkai infection, while secondary disasters that struck the city and the surrounding areas rendered nearly 10 million people homeless. Upon the onset of the eruption, Schicksal mobilized and deployed 42 Valkyrie squads, a total of 147 Valkyries. Over 5,000 rescue personnel from various departments were also sent in to contain the eruption within the limits of Manila. Combat losses were extremely heavy. 6 squads garrisoned in the Philippines, including Snow Lotus, Sea Lion, and Astra, were nearly annihilated. The eruption severely affected the economy and political stability in the Philippines and Southeast Asia as a whole. To date, the city of Manila remains off-limits, with Honkai levels in urban districts remaining at unsafe levels. Further monitoring is still required. Document last updated on 22nd of March 2017. Razor of Rhyme. Defeat more enemies for more points and tokens. Keep Thermix for damage boost. When it drops to 0, the stage will be finalized. Keep Thermix in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds to gain total damage respectively. Heated Zone. The Schicksal robot on the field generates a heated zone within which Valkyries can keep warm. Flame Bomb. Flame bombs with special marks will appear in the stage. Destroy them before they explode to gain additional thematic boost time. Black Hole. Summon a level 3. Summon a 3-second black hole to deal damage. So 2 seconds. Ice counts. Black hole it is. Schicksal generates a heating field. Make use of the orbital bombing to fight enemies more effectively. Position orbital strike. The orbital cannon periodically bombards the marked area to deal damage to enemies. Oh, she isn't an up. That's not a good idea.
この戦闘は勝たなければいけません。こちらです。私もまだまだです。かすり傷です。任務開始。いただきます。 ここまでです。板に渡しておいてください。どの戦闘も全力で戦います。
Rhyme level 1 boosts total damage dealt to frozen enemies by 150%. Guess then we are going to use this, which... No, it doesn't freeze anyone, so... It doesn't help anyone. Paladin on the floor. Make use of falling ice cones to fight enemies more effectively. Ice Tomb will inflict a large amount of rhyme trauma when scattered by a death web. Oops, energy. It's always energy.
者は装備だけに頼ります。ついてきてください。任務クリア。次の場所に行きますよ。
Tide web. Okay, that's all of those. Dunzai Spectromancer. Spectromancy, number 1. Blades flashed like thundering justice. Walk into the beam to start a tutorial. Someone's fast. At full Mugen, tap attack to consume 1 shot of Moonin and cast Shikage. Tap attack again after Shikage 1 to consume another slot of Moonin and cast Shikage 2. Tap attack after evasion to charge. Tap attack after evasion to sprint attack. Nice. Hold attack after evasion to consume evasion skills, recharge and cast combo attack without any mooning cost. Tutorial ended. One slot of money. Spectromancy 2. A spectre stands in silent witness. Charge at enemies to deal damage, and summon Bushin Spectre after landing to impale them. Casting ultimate grants 3 Kagenai recharges. Charge at enemies to deal damage, and summon Bushin Spectre after landing. Danzai Spectromancer can consume 1 Kagenai recharge when casting combo attack to boost the damage of Shikage 1 and 2. Kagenai recharges cannot be consumed again with a certain period of time. Charge attacks from teammates can consume 1 Kagenai recharge to summon Bushin Spectre to attack. Try switching to another Valkyrie and use charge attack. Danzai Spectromancer's QT is triggered by Impair or Time Slow. Danzai, Danzai.
一人で歩いていくの。
Spectromancy free. My power is yours to command. Defeat enemies on Danzai Spectromancer with teammates' help.
未来の道は一人で歩いていくの。
Tropical hell. Danzai blade. Spectromancy 2, Spectromancy 3. Get Danzai core times 10. Get Danzai core times 20. Unlock Shadow Dash's augmented core. Snowy gifts. More Danzai cores. For me. $41. Perfect. Because that means we can indeed say goodbye to Shadow Dance forever. Or Shadow Dash, whatever her name is. Shadow Dash. Danzai Spectromancer strikes. Augment core to acquire these new skills. Chicago Flash and Tsukiyo's Super Spectromancy. Unlock Shadow Dash's augment core. Now we just need to upgrade that a lot. possibly give her a better weapon, now that she's actually useful. Parry, sword, Sylvan is on Blade Strike. Yeah, I'm never gonna use Blade Strike. Crystals! Deploy Shadow Dash to clear any story, chronicles or event stage 5 times. It's kinda like I was forced to do that. But not 15 times. At this stage, enemies take damage as long as there is a time fracture up. So I wanted to see if I can do the whole stage without attacking. And still make it in the time limit. Don't use switch attacks, please. Oh, hey there, Hammerer. Still hammering. It's possibly gonna be close. I think this is the final formation. It's gonna be close. No? Okay. They got officially Savaduda. think this should be the last battle for today.
ブローニャ戦場に到着しました。全部総展開。イエスキャプテン。
Why are you not claiming? There you go. I think that is all.
艦長、早くログアウトしてください。ブローニャは休みたいです。
Yes, sir, Brony, sir, going offline. Thank you for watching today. That was quite the stream. Good night. See you next time, when we return for more Into Earth Does the Water Flow. Bye bye.